I'm curious what it would be like to kind of enter into the Yorgos universe.
I think Yorgos just stands alone as so different than honestly anyone I work with. But the common denominator is Yorgos has such a great sense of humor. As like,
yeah.
I think I was mostly just so nervous. Like I don't get stressed or nervous when I'm working with like, Tired David, but I was so nervous.
Like, you get the email or whatever.
I mean, first of all, I remember meeting with Yorgos and I was like, I don't have that job. There's just no way. Because it's like so odd. There was like on the phone, our FaceTime, it's like awkward, like we had a FaceTime and Yorgos is like really funny when you get to know him, but he does have that sort of, as you can imagine, stilted, awkward kind of, and I was like, that went terrible. I told my agent, I was like, that didn't go well. And then she's like, you got the job. And I was like, what? But I wasn't planning on working then. So I actually had to have this moment of like, I was like, I had just done like, I was doing Ghost Story. I had to leave to do that. And I really was trying to take some time off. I'd been working nonstop. But of course, you don't say no to Yorgos. So I was like, that would be crazy. I think I went on a hike. I might have taken some kind of mushrooms or chocolate or something. And I was like, as I was walking down, I was like, I have to do that movie. Which of course, and I learned so much. But working with Yorgos, he's such a different filmmaker. He doesn't approach things in the same way of story and character, as I was saying before, that's not what Yorgos is after. It's not after like, who are these characters? Where do they come from? Yeah. He's after a feeling. He wants to create sort of discomfort and, he's not trying to create like a world of layers that you can understand. He wants to actually keep you kind of everything on the surface and distance. So it's such a different, and I had never worked in that way. So it was like forgetting everything I knew, and I've told this story so many times, but one of the first things we're scouting and I was like, I think Nicole's house, like her character, she would be someone who would get an interior designer. And he like looked at me and he said, don't even get started with that stuff, Jade. And I was like, noted. And that was like the last time we talked about character. Wow. He's like, don't even get started with backstory. And I was like, okay.
Wow. Well, how did that affect your process and like decision?
Honestly, it didn't, because like again, when I read that script and knowing Yorgos's work and just reading the script, like I could see it very quickly. I think I got the job because I sent in a lookbook that understood sort of that feeling, and it was just more about wanting to create that feeling. So constantly looking for trying to find the colors and the right, it was always feeling something that felt off and alienating. So you're just trying to create these spaces and these feelings. So once you just get rid of that, and the characters they're not meant to be fully developed. You're not really meant to understand. And once you just kind of detach yourself from that and try to detach yourself really, I remember once the AD asking Yorgos, and this is, he went on to do The Favorite with Yorgos, and I think they're really tight collaborators, but he asked him once about that scene in the scene with I can't remember their names anymore, the Colin and the kid in the wheelchair, when he's telling him the story about his father, and he's like, you know the story, you know what I'm talking about? And Attila was like, what is that? Like, can you explain like why? And Yorgos like, I don't like what he was like, what is that about? It's like Yorgos like, I don't know. Why do you think I know this? Like, why? She's like, we're going to figure it out. And they would always use this metaphor. You're like, we build the monster, then we follow it and we see where it goes. And that's kind of the process of working with Yorgos. And it's really exciting. It's like, you don't always know exactly where it's going to go. And the actors show up and then you start to see it. Like, I mean, he's so, the kid, I just worked with him again. I'm so bad with names. He's so good that you couldn't imagine from reading the script on paper and then you see him and you're just like, this kid has it. And then he's in The Green Knight, and David was also just in love with him. He's so talented that he just takes it off the page and you're just like, whoa. So it was Yorgos is so funny. He's such a good sense of humor. And by the end of it, it was great. And there was never any I never had any traumatic issues. I was never like crying in the car, but it was just mostly just stress because I wanted, I really respect him as a filmmaker, and I just wanted it to be right because his films, you don't want to be in the canon of Yorgos' films and people going, well, that one didn't look good. like God,
When you work with someone like Yorgos or someone that maybe works or thinks differently than maybe other directors you've worked with, do you feel yourself needing to kind of like inhabit like their brain? Or for example, Yorgos kind of being like, don't even talk about backstory. Do you still do you as an artist go there still, and does that inform your decisions?
No,
or do you try to
actually, I think on that one we were really just trying to get the world to feel like that strangeness. So we just kind of, it's kind of like my brain is so used to working that way that it was almost like a slip. But then when I think back on it, I was like, why would I? Of course, duh.
So you kind of assume the filmmaker's viewpoint in the decisions.
I think you have to, and I always find it interesting when I hear about designers and directors butting heads or not being able to because it is your job to bring their vision to life. I mean, you're there to bring the film to life, and you should fight the battles. Even with David, even today I was trying to win a battle over something. But once the director says, if David's I really like this, I want this, then you're I want it too. I want it so bad. I love it. I'm so in love with this. What was I thinking? You have to, and you have to convince yourself. There's never a moment that, they decided on something, the DP and the director, and I didn't like it. I don't sit around sulking. You move on from it, and you move on, you find a way to make it as great. Cause I always just remember, remind myself they're seeing something, or the director or the DP seeing something I don't right now, because they have all the shots in their head. But I trust my collaborators, and I just you dive in and you just make sure. So to me, it's always about inhabiting the director's brain and figuring out what they want and giving they're all so different, the directors I've worked with. But it's always just making sure that you're faithfully bringing their vision to life, and that you're doing justice to the story. Because there are times, if I'll sit with something for a long time that I'm I don't like this, I just prepare a little presentation and then I bring it to the director and the DP, and I'm this is why. And sometimes I win, sometimes I don't. And it's not a win, sometimes everyone's you know what, you're right, that makes sense. Because for me, I'm looking at really the whole world all the time, and the director will often, they have so much to do with casting this. They'll see one location and be in love with it when they walk in, but I'm standing back and seeing how it fits in really constantly. I'm going, it's my brain is puzzling it together, and I have my wall, I'm and if something pops out and I'm it's really jumping, I really don't like it. That's when I say something, I speak my piece, and then, but you always have to come with good reason. It can't just be I don't like it. It's what's your reason why you don't like it?